Hello and welcome to Searching the Scriptures, a daily podcast where Bible questions will be given Bible answers. No opinion, just Bible. For today's episode, we'll be looking at the question, how do we cope in an evil world? When we take a look at the world around us, we see it is a very evil place. Those of us who are about 20 years of age and older can remember 9/11. We remember seeing on the television the Twin Towers burning and eventually falling. It was a horrific day. More than 3,000 people lost their lives. It was horrific then, it is still horrific to remember. Those who are even older still can remember World War II or the Vietnam War. And there are even those today who are returning from recent wars with the scars of battle. But even when you turn on the television, we see murders every day. We see stories about robberies, about stabbings, about rapings. We see all these stories, and we can come to the conclusion that today's world is the most evil world that has ever been. Well, the Bible teaches differently. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9, we read, "The thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun." Ecclesiastes 1, verse 9 says, there is nothing new. There has been murder as long as man has been around. In the first 3 chapters of Genesis, we read of murder. Cain killed Abel. We read of lies. We read of sin. All of this is the result of sin, people sinning. Why does it seem like our world is more evil than others? It's because we live in the television age and the internet age. We can turn on the television and see bad news every hour of the day. We can turn on our internet and search the news of the day, and we can see bad news any hour of the day. Last week, there was a massacre in Paris where gunmen killed 11 people at an office and killed even more policemen. And we in North America knew about it. 100 years ago, these same massacres could have taken place, and it would have taken a long time for news to get over here. 100, 200, 300 years ago. It's not that this massacre is in any way, shape, or form different or could not have happened 300 years ago. It's just that we hear about it more often. The Scriptures teach of many different evil things that have happened that are just as bad as what occurred last week. In Matthew chapter 27, we read at verse 35. Matthew 27, verse 35. "And they crucified him, and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet. They parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots." This is speaking about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Crucifixion was a terrible method of killing someone. We think that lethal injection is brutal, that the electric chair is brutal. Crucifixion, they nail your hands and your feet to boards and suspend you in the air until you die. It is a very painful death. It is a very slow death. That occurred in the 1st century. If that occurred today, it would be broadcast on television. We'd think, what an evil world this was. It was an evil world. In Acts chapter 8, we read of another instance of murder. In Acts chapter 8, in verse 1, "And Saul was consenting unto his death, And at that time there was a great persecution against the church, which was at Jerusalem, and they were all scattered abroad throughout the region of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. In Acts 9, verse 1, and Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest and desired of him to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found anyone of the way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Yet breathing threatenings, slaughter against the disciples. He made havoc of the church, killing people. If Paul or Saul here lived in our time, it would be broadcast on television, just like those Paris attacks. But this was the first century. So how do we cope with this? What do we do? Well, we turn to God. In Matthew chapter 11, we're going to start reading at verse 28. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. If we want to cope with an evil world, if we want to escape an evil world, we need to turn to Christ. We need to come unto Him. All ye that labor and are heavy laden, sorrowful. Everyone can come to Christ. His yoke is easy, His burden is light. We cannot cope with an evil world apart from the gospel. We cannot make sense of an evil world apart from the gospel. Many have tried, many will try. Many will say it is foolish to turn to the Bible. Jesus said otherwise. In Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8, it says, For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. The Bible is a very comforting book, if you turn to it, because it teaches us how to be saved. We may not escape the evil of this world. We may succumb. We may be a victim of the evil of this world. But if we obey Christ through obedience to the gospel, we have no fear of the person that can kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. But perhaps, while turning to the gospel, another way we can cope with the evil of this world is to simply turn the television off sometimes. It can be depressing to look at all the evil that we find, all of the sadness, all of the murder. Might be easier to turn it off. And when you turn it off, open the scriptures, find what it says, and obey it. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode. Searching the Scriptures has been brought to you by the East End Church of Christ, which meets every Sunday at 10 a.m. at 3601 Victoria Park Avenue, Suite 200, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If you have any Bible questions that you would like to have answered during this podcast, or if you have any general comments about what you have heard today, you may email them to Toronto East End Church of Christ at gmail.com. That's Toronto East End Church of Christ at gmail.com. Finally, if you'd like to catch up on any episode that you missed, you will find them at www.eastendchurch.org under the Daily Podcast tab found on the main page. I hope you have found the few minutes that we've spent together today useful in expanding your knowledge of what the Bible teaches. Please join me tomorrow when we will be discussing what the Bible means by the word carnal. Until you listen again, keep searching the Scriptures to learn what God wants you to do. Goodbye, and have a great day.